Hello everybody, Sir Leon here and welcome back to another mathematics video. In this video we will be exploring the simple concept of volume, and at the end of this video you should be able to do these two things. One, you should be able to correctly define volume, and two, you should be able to correctly calculate the volume of a cube, cuboid, cylinder, cone and prisms. So first of all, what is volume? The volume is like the 3D extension of area. And instead of calculating the amount of space that a flat surface takes up, you will be calculating the amount of space that a three-dimensional shape takes up, meaning a shape that has some amount of thickness. As long as you can hold a shape, it is a 3D shape. So there are some formulas that we use, some simple formulas, and let's head straight into some examples. So the first one we want to look at is the cube. And we know the cube is the 3D extension of the square. And just like with the square, all of the sides of the cube are equal. All of the surfaces of the cube are equal. So to find the volume of a cube, all you need is one side or one edge. All you need is the length of one edge. And the formula to find volume of a cube would be volume is equal to L cube, or length multiplied by length multiplied by length. So let's say we were given the side of the cube to be 10 meters and we want to find the volume of this cube. Volume would simply be equal to 10 meters multiplied by 10 meters multiplied by 10 meters. So volume will be 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 would be 1,000. So this would be 1,000 meters cube. And that would be the volume of the cube. And that's how you calculate the volume of a cube. So the next shape that we want to calculate the volume of is a cuboid. Now the cuboid is a 3D extension of the rectangle. So to find the volume of a rectangle, instead of finding for length times width, we will add one thing to that. So length times width times height. So volume would be the length multiplied by the width multiplied by the height. So in this case, let's say we had a length of 8 cm, we have a width of 3 cm, and we have a height of 5 cm. When you're asked to calculate the volume of this shape, it will simply be the length, which is 8 cm, multiplied by the width, which is 3 cm, multiplied by the height, which is 5 cm. So the volume will be equal to 8 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 5 would give us 120 cm cube. And that is how you calculate the volume of a cuboid. Now the thing about calculating the volume of the cuboid, now people tend to put emphasis on the length, width, and height. Now remember, depending on how you orientate the shape, the length will change, the height will change, and the width will change. So all you need to do is make sure that you find the different sides and you multiply the three of them. So if you put this as the height, if you put this as the width, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you multiply them because you will get the same answer. Now let's look at the cylinder. Now the thing about calculating the volume of the cylinder, in the cylinder we have two circles and you have the body which will extend to give you a rectangle. So the formula that we use to find volume of a cylinder would be, since it involves a circle, pi will come into play. So the volume would be pi r squared, which will give you the area of this piece, and then you multiply that by the height. So pi r squared multiplied by height, and that will give you the amount of volume that this shape will take up. And that is the thing about these shapes that have in which the cross section is the same throughout. All you need to do is find the volume of the base and you multiply it by the height, and that will give you the volume. So let's say for this shape, the radius is 10 meters and the height is 28 meters. And we are asked to calculate the volume of the cylinder. So the volume will be equal to pi. Now pi is normally given to you. Pi will either be, they will either tell you use pi as 22/7, use pi as 3.14, or whatever value they decide to give you pi as. Because pi is a very lengthy value and you can actually find pi on your calculator, but for the purpose of CXC, they will give you what to use pi as. So for this example, I will use pi as 3.14. So pi will be equal to 3.14. So pi would be 3.14 multiplied by the radius, which is 10 meters, multiplied by, well, since it's a radius squared, it will be 10 meters squared, or 10 meters times 10 meters, multiplied by the height, which is 28 meters. So the volume will be equal to 3.14 times 10 would be 100. So 100 times 3.14 would give me 314. And 314 times 28 would give me 8,792 meters cube. And that would be the volume of this cylinder. So now let's look at a cone. Now the cone, if you look at the cone, it's like piece of a cylinder. If I draw up this shape here, and you can see you have something like a cylinder, but 1/3 of it would be missing. So to find the volume of the cone, you're actually using the formula to find volume of a cylinder, but you're multiplying it by 1/3. So you can say volume is equal to 1/3 multiplied by pi r squared h. So it's 1/3 of the cylinder. So in this case, I want us to use pi as 22/7. So to find the volume of this shape, it would be volume is equal to 1/3 multiplied by pi, which is 22/7, multiplied by the radius, which is 7 meters, multiplied by, since it's 7 meters squared, it will be 7 meters times 7 meters multiplied by the height, which is 9 meters. So we can multiply, so we can do some cancelling out. So this 7 will cancel out with this 7. This 3 will cancel out with this 9. So 3 1s, 3 3 into 3, 9. And then we just multiply everything at the top. So 1 times 22 will give me 22. 22 times 7 times 3 would give me 462 meters cube, since we're dealing with volume and it's meters times meters times meters. So the volume of this cone will be 462 meters cube. Now let's look at this final shape. So I want us to calculate the volume of this triangular prism. Now the thing about calculating the volume of any prism, the formula to calculate the volume of any prism and how do we identify a shape is a prism is if when you cut the shape, the cross section of the shape would be the same thing that is at the base. Well, in this case, this will serve as the base. And the two end bases are the same. Well, the base is the same here and the base is the same here. So if I cut the shape here, this shape that I cut here will still be a triangle. So that is how we identify a prism. So for this prism, we see the base or the area of the cross section would be a triangle. So for this prism, we see the cross section or the base, however you want to look at it, is a triangle. So it's the area of the base multiplied by the height. So I can say the formula to find volume of a prism would be area of, I want to say cross section, because most books will have cross section, or most papers will have cross section, multiplied by the height. Now the height would just be this part here, because if I am to flip this shape like that, this will become the height. So here would be the height. So let's find the area of the cross section. In this case, the area of the cross section would be the area of this triangle. So the volume in this case would be half base times height multiplied by the height of the entire shape. So this would be half multiplied by base, which is 6 cm, multiplied by height, which is 8 cm, multiplied by the height of the entire shape. In this case, we were looking at the height of the triangle. That is where we got the 8. but the height of this entire shape would be 12 cm. So we know half of 6 would be 3. So 3 times 8 times 12 would give us a volume of 288 cm cube. And that would be the volume of this shape. And that is how we calculate the volume of prisms. It's just the area of the cross section, which is something you think about it as the base, multiplied by the height of the shape. And as you can find for any prism. So with that, this has brought me to the end of this video on volume. I trust that you now have a good understanding of how to find volume of a cube, cuboid, cylinder, cone, and prisms. And of course, I must leave you with some to do on your own. So I have 2 shapes here, and I want you to find the volume of them. We have 2 prisms actually. So work on these 2 to make sure that you have a good understanding of finding the volume of shapes. So with that, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.